No human endeavor is as fundamental to the natural cycle of life as hunting for food. Modern hunting, particularly wilderness hunting, demands that the hunter master age-old skills. The successful ethical hunter must possess a naturalist's knowledge, proficiency as a marksman, and the most essential skill necessary to provide food, the ability to render an animal into edible meat. Taking an Alaskan big game animal and enjoying the healthful, nutritious game meat is truly the ultimate hunting experience. A successful Alaskan hunt is the product of a hunter's diligent preparation, proficiency, and plain hard work. Wanton waste of game meat due to a hunter's negligent care is a serious violation of hunting regulations. Hunters have the responsibility to prepare themselves to take care of game meat under a variety of adverse conditions. Alaska's harsh and rapidly changing climate, difficult terrain, and challenging big game place great demands on the hunter. Early season hunters may encounter temperatures in the 60s and 70s that will quickly spoil meat. Late season hunters may encounter extremely low temperatures that will prematurely freeze the meat. The result is poor quality or inedible meat. Hunters must be prepared for a wide range of inhospitable conditions, including rain, snow, sleet, wind, insects, and darkness. The ethical hunter willingly accepts responsibility for field dressing a big game animal, taking every reasonable precaution to ensure that the highest quality of game meat returns from the field. Healthy eating is the most fundamental reason for hunting. Over 80% of the public supports hunting when the meat is used for human consumption. The health benefits of eating game meat are well founded in science. Every 100 grams of lean beef contain approximately 323 calories and 28 grams of fat. The same amount of caribou or moose meat contains approximately 120 calories and only 1.2 milligrams of fat. Game meat also offers as much as twice the protein of domestic beef. This video will help equip you with the skills necessary to care for your hard-earned meat and ensure healthy meals of lean, low-cholesterol meat for you and your family. Before you go afield, learn the essentials of field dressing. Read books on the subject. View field care videos. Examine pictures of game anatomy or the skeleton of an animal. And if possible, get hands-on experience, helping another hunter before you attempt to field dress a large, big game animal alone.
Let's take a look at some of the tools you'll need to successfully field dress and care for big game meat. Be familiar with these tools and proficient in their use. First, make sure you have regulations covering the area where you're going to hunt. Next, make sure you have the proper harvest tickets for the species you're hunting. And finally, make sure you have the current hunting license. Fundamental for processing game in the field are good sharp knives. You need two types. One for general cutting and skinning, and one for boning. These first two knives are used for skinning and general cutting. Important features of this type of knife are a long, curved cutting edge for maximum cutting surface, and a rigid blade. A blade length of 3 to 5 inches should be adequate. The second type of knife has a thin, flexible blade. It's used for cutting around bones and joints and also for filleting meat. Blade length of 5 to 6 inches is fine. You must be able to sharpen your knife while field dressing your animal. Excellent choices are ceramic or diamond. Another very important item is fluorescent tape to mark the kill site and the meat cache. Next, you'll need several pair of rubber or latex gloves to protect your hands from biting insects or parasites. A small hand axe may be useful for clearing a working area around your animal. And a 14-inch shark tooth saw is excellent for making clean cuts through bone. For repositioning the animal, you'll need at least 50 feet of strong nylon rope and block and tackle. A tarp is useful for laying the meat on, and you'll need 6 to 8 game bags sturdy enough to hold large quarters and allow adequate air circulation. To help preserve meat in the field, be sure to treat the bags with a citric acid solution. There may be times when you run out of daylight. We recommend a headlamp to keep your hands free. To keep your hands clean, take along plenty of handy wipes. In Alaska, it's against the law to kill bears that are taking game meat. When approaching the kill site or the meat cache, have a can of bear spray handy. To handle the heavy loads of meat, get a top quality external pack frame. And make sure that the pack you select has adequate lashing points to secure the load to the frame. A successful hunt starts with good equipment, but to enjoy the hunt and do the work necessary, get in good shape and bring along a positive attitude.
In many hunting areas, a hunter may only take a male animal, or an antlered bull of certain size. Therefore, it is essential that you are able to identify a legal animal when spotted in the field. To correctly place the shot on a big game animal, it is essential for the hunter to know and understand the anatomy of the game animal. Hunters must also know and commit to memory the flight trajectory of their bullet or arrow, and be able to adequately estimate distance under hunting conditions. Hunters must respect each animal they seek. It is the hunter's responsibility to take the time and money to practice with the firearm or bow that he or she will be hunting with. Every hunter must practice enough to develop the necessary skill to place an arrow or a bullet of adequate caliber in the vital area. The best placement for bullet or arrow is in the heart, lung, liver, vital area, as shown here. This area provides a generous 12 to 14-inch diameter target. In contrast, the brain or the critical spinal column are less than 4 inches in diameter. A well-constructed bullet, such as the nodular partition or a broadhead which penetrates the heart-lung zone, will result in a certain and humane kill. Head and neck shots do not always result in an instant kill or a clean miss. Head shots too often result in an animal wounded in the eyes, nose, or mouth. Neck shots can often result in wounding hits to the trachea, esophagus, or nape of the neck. The heart-lung shot, properly placed, is fatal. And heart-lung vital area shots result in the loss of a little rib meat. However, 25 to 50 pounds of prime neck meat can be lost from a neck shot. Another cause of unnecessary wounding is shooting game at long range. Difficulty at range estimation and wind drift result in shots taken that are beyond the capability of the hunter, and wounding loss from poorly placed shots. Too many hunters rely on powerful cartridges and optics rather than stalking skills developed by hours of careful practice. Most hunters should confine their shots at big game to 250 yards or less, even with magnum cartridges and powerful optics. Always take the best and surest shot. You've located and successfully stalked a legal animal. Now take a moment to assess your situation. Is this the first day of a 10-day trip? If you shoot a moose on the first day, be prepared to spend much of your time each day for the next 9 days taking care of the meat. Do not let excitement or greed overcome common sense. Never shoot a moose a long distance from camp. And never shoot a moose that is standing in water or where it could easily make it to water. Always approach a downed game animal from the rear. If it is only wounded, it will likely attempt to escape. When such an animal is finally killed, it will be stressed and have a very strong tasting or unpalatable meat because of an increased pH. Worse yet, you could lose the animal. Any wounded game animal can be dangerous if approached from the front. Without straddling the animal, ensure it is dead by touching the eyeball with a long stick, the muzzle of your rifle, or an arrow. When you are satisfied the animal is dead, immediately unload the chamber of your firearm or unnock the arrow from your bow. Place the firearm or bow nearby and be sure it is unloaded. Regulations in almost every state require that you immediately tag the animal. In Alaska, this consists of clipping out the correct day and month that the animal was taken. Alaska regulations do not require you to physically attach the tag to the animal. By the time you reach your animal, it is most likely the heart will have completely stopped. Any shot that stops the heart makes cutting the throat to bleed the animal of limited value. It's not uncommon to take 2 or 3 hours from the time the animal is killed until it's bagged up. Take your time. Don't rush your work and get careless. which will waste meat and may even result in a severe knife wound. Just a word of caution as you set to work. There are a few places in Alaska where there are no bears. Bears have an incredible sense of smell. Bears are attracted to the smell of the animal you are butchering. So keep alert and look up occasionally from your work to see if you've attracted visitors. Most bears will remain hidden and patiently wait for you to leave the remains of their feast. A can of pepper spray is very handy if the bear is of the impatient sort and gets too close too soon. We're going to demonstrate a single method for field dressing a moose. The fundamentals are the same for any big game animal, including caribou, sheep, elk, and deer. There is no single best method. In fact, we would encourage you to learn more than one method. Different conditions and situations in the field may make one method preferable over another. However, the method we will demonstrate, which is to skin the animal before removing internal organs, has several advantages, particularly with large animals and in Alaska. First, you avoid opening the body cavity and the risk of contaminating the meat with body waste until the last step. Second, you can use this method if you're alone, or if the animal falls in an awkward position and is not easily moved. Moving the carcass tends to add dirt, leaves, and other debris to the hair, which increases the likelihood of contaminating the meat when skinning the animal. The light rope and small pulleys you brought in your pack should be adequate for any moving required. Let's begin the process of field dressing the animal. Remember the essentials for the successful field care of meat. Keep the meat clean. No hair, no dirt, no debris, no body wastes. Keep the meat cool. Cooling the meat quickly retards the growth of bacteria, which will spoil the meat and result in unnecessary meat loss. Finally, keep the meat dry. Damp or wet meat helps bacteria to grow.
Okay, Jason, we're going to start right here at the back of the skull. This is the parietal bone. If you feel there, you can feel the back of the skull. Feel that?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to start to cut down here. We're going to follow the center line of the back right down to the top of the tail. And we're going to come around the side of the tail to the anus, down the back leg, down to below the hock joint. And we'll make a circular cut right around there. Another cut's going to be from the point of the elbow here down the back of the leg to below the knee. And make another circular cut around the leg there. The last cut we'll do before we start skinning is come to the start of our first cut, come around behind the ear, down to the point of the jaw, down to the center of the throat or below if we can. And then we'll start skinning from there. I'll start the initial cut down the center line here. Now the hide's real thick here, and you want to always cut away from yourself. With the blade, have the blade pointing away, so if it slips, you don't jam it in your leg. We're starting to get a lot of flies around, so I suggest we put on some rubber gloves and then you can continue on cutting down that backbone. Okay. Don't stick the blade too deep, just keep it kind of parallel to the hide, just under the hide, that away. Now that we've got past this hump on this moose, we're going to be getting into where the back straps are on the east side of the backbone. They lay along here like this. So when you're cutting, you want to make sure that you keep your blade this way and not that way, so you don't cut into those. And as you get further back, there's a likelihood that if you go too straight in, you can puncture the abdominal cavity, and then we've got big problems. Now, Jason, you look down here. See? You can see the dark on either side, and that light line there, that's right on the center of the backbone. That's exactly where you want to be. And we're back at the tail now. We're going to cut around to the side. Remember we talked about coming down around the anus. And we're going to go right down that back leg. Now you notice when we're cutting, that we always stick the point of the knife under the skin and cut out. Otherwise you'd be cutting a lot of hair, and that would dull the knife, and it would get all kinds of hair all over the meat, which is and it really increases the chances of contamination of the meat. Bulls in the fall time are rutting, and they'll urinate all over themselves. They'll have wallows, they'll wallow in it, so they'll have urine and mud all over themselves. We're almost down here to where we need to make that circular cut. This is just below this joint. We're going to leave the lower leg on there for a handle. We need to move this around. It's going to be heavy, and the more handle we've got, the better. On this cut, when we're going to go around, we'll eventually saw this off, but there's a joint right there. And the way to do that is, rather than go from the outside, is again from the underside, so that we don't cut that hair. And you can skin it back a little bit like that. Just keep coming around. There, okay? Then you can just open this up a little bit. Okay, remember you're going to start from the point of the elbow up the center line, right up to where my finger is. How's your knife doing? There you go. Good way to do that is take this little tab right here with your finger, hold it up and skin it back a little bit, cut that tissue back. There you go. Now continue your cut around. That's right, use that tip as a lever, that away. And again, we'll leave this lower leg on just for a handle. Okay, all right, we got that leg done. Now let's start taking the skin off.
Well, where are we going to start?
Okay, Jason, we've gone down the neck a little ways. Let's make this cut down to the throat. Remember, we go along behind the ear. Down to the corner of the jaw. And we want to go as far down as we can, because when we roll it over, we're going to have to meet this cut on the other side. So if we can even go past the center line. Okay. Let me look at your knife for a second. See how the blade is curved here?
Yeah.
You want to use that curved portion of the blade, not the tip, but the curved portion. That gives you a lot of cutting area. There you go, that away, and kind of cut a little bit angled towards the hide. Not a lot, but a little bit. There you go. Grab it by the edge and roll it, and then see how the knife lays there? Notice on the blade angle, I'm not directly at the meat, and I'm not directly at the hide, but it's kind of angled between the two. So as we pull, we don't cut meat, and we don't cut the hide. All right, I'm going to swap places with you here and pull some hide for you. Jason, we move from the front back to the back here, and this is typically where moose will build up a big fat layer, so it makes cutting a little bit tricky because there's so much fat. So just start cutting that tissue and let's see how we go. Remember that knife angle, that away. Good. Okay. When you start seeing this white stuff here, that means you're getting into the hide. So you want to cut just a little bit more of an angle towards the meat, not that much, like this here, just to get through that. There you go. See how you the difference there? Okay, that's what you're looking for.
Okay.
How you doing?
Doing pretty good.
Getting down there? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to tie this back leg up so I can skin the inside of it.
Need any help?
Oh, I can get her. Keep cutting. So let's get the shoulder down to this leg and get it down to the midline. Once we get down here, then we can go ahead and cut out and leave the testicles attached. Now, Jason, we're down to that cut that you made on the front leg. Remember, from the elbow down, it should be coming into view right in that knob there. And that's going to allow us to skin out that front leg. There's our hole. See right there? Yeah. That's the cut you started with. Okay? So that gives us a spot to get a hold of. All right, very good. Now we're going to move up, roll that skin back, and again, keep the hair side out. And we're going to skin this leg back to that same point. You lift that up for me? Okay, ah boy. Jason, remember that cut you made on the front leg? We've gone all the way around it. Now we can just pull it out of there and our leg is free. And we got to be real careful along here because that's the paunch and we don't want to poke a hole in that. Okay, there's the testicle. See, we can leave that attached here. Clean up around this. We can leave that attached just like that. When we go to take this leg off, we can cut below that and that'll stay with it. Or we can cut penis, which is right here. See, and we can leave a section of that on attached because it goes right back up through the pubic symphysis on the pelvis and connects. So we can use either one of those two to leave evidence of sex on. Jason, we're ready to pull this hind quarter off here. So what we do, we got it tied up for a little bit and it'll keep this area open. So we're going to start cutting down. Now see all this tissue in here? That's the stuff you want to cut. And because this is the paunch with all the rumen in it, we don't want to cut that. And we don't want to cut where we can't see. Now this we want to leave, remember, attached to the quarter. All right, we've loosened this tissue up in here. We're going to cut right down through where the muscle masses from the hind legs meet on the pelvis. There's a little section of the pelvis in here. It's called the pubic symphysis, and we can cut right down to that. And there's basically a seam right between the two muscle masses that we can follow. And what we do when we cut that is that it releases a lot of tension on the muscles. But the big caution is, as we cut forward, the bladder sits right under the pelvic bone under here, and it's real easy to nick it. And if you nick it, you got big problems. Now, see the tissue here? See how the tendons and ligaments lay in here? So you can just basically take your knife and follow those right up to the joint. This is where you want to be real cautious with your knife work. Real cautious. Jason, if you can hold up on that back leg like this, just push it straight up. Attaboy. Okay, Jason, the part that you couldn't see before is all these tissues here and the pelvic bone. You can feel the pelvic bone there. And what we want to do is take a thinner blade knife and we just want to follow that. See that? Yeah. See how that pops away there? And you can just, if you get the pressure on it just right, it'll come right off. And you just let the knife follow. And again, now there are holes in the pelvis and with the large intestine coming through, so we don't want to be poking the knife down in there. Now there's a joint we're going to come to in here. It's that ball joint. And put your finger right there, right there. Feel it. You can feel one half move and the other half not. Okay, look out here. Now see that knob right there?
Yeah.
See that? That's what we're after. And that's what lets this leg come down. There it is. Okay. Now you gotta be real careful as you go around it so you don't get into that. There, see it? Come loose?
Yeah.
Okay, cut that. Here we go. Now, very carefully along here. Now, once we start making these cuts, you see that big vessel we cut? It's a lot of blood in there. So it makes seeing where you're going kind of difficult. So we get this tissue loose. And again, now you're working back up on the outside here. And where you're headed for is this leg comes back up. That's the pelvis bone, the front of it right there. Feel that? Feel that bone there. Okay, we're going to come right to that. And then we're going to follow that around back to the backbone and then straight back to where we were. Now you got muscles, these big muscles come into the backbone up here, so we're going to have to cut those to get onto our pelvis. Again, I'm being cautious right here because I don't want to poke a hole in something that'll ruin everything. That is real critical. That's where this flexible blade, see now there's that white bone again.
Yeah.
See that? Perfect. Perfect. Looking good. Okay, we want to follow that bone. See that? Look at that. Boom. Hit the right one and drops right off there. Now, see that there?
Yeah.
Soft. We don't want to cut that. That's going to expose some intestine, so we got to be real careful of those holes there. This is delicate work. Just go slowly. Now see, there's his tail, so we're coming right up on the spine here. We're doing just fine. Now we come right back to ground zero, and there's our hind leg. Now I'm going to stick this through there. If you can grab the end of that, what we're going to do is stand it up, and we'll sit it right on that hole, on that bag there. Come around a little bit, lift your end a little higher. Another foot, do it. There we go. Right there. We got evidence of sex attached, so we're legal. Okay, I'll get that stick out of there. Okay, get that in there so we don't pull that off. Attaboy. Now, where's our meat saw there? That's that flat joint. Comes right off. All right, now let's sack that puppy up. All right, Jason, let's lift that front leg up kind of this way. And this is going to be a real easy one to cut off. We're going to cut this tissue here, and it'll just go right up the ribs. There's no bone-to-bone joints. Now, one of the things we want to remember is if we're going to take ribs, we want to keep more meat on the rib side. If we're not going to take the ribs as bones, then we can cut fairly close to the rib. Now, Jason, if you can look around here, see this big hole under here?
Yeah.
We've cut through this muscle. So all you got to do is just follow that right up.
Now what's this that you just cut into?
Big artery going to the front leg.
Oh.
There's a big tendon right there. All right, that a boy. How you doing? Okay, he's gonna come right at you here. Hang on. Okay, see this white line right along here? Where I'm pointing right along there?
Yeah.
It's the top of the shoulder blade. I'm going to cut right along there and the leg will come free and just pull it right back. Okay, pull on it. Make it right in there, atta boy. There you go. See how that rolled up bag works? Boy, we just popped her in there in a heartbeat. Very good. All right, and again, my preference is to cut this joint off, so let's do that. Okay, and we lucked out this time. Don't even need the saw. Very good. Okay, pull that bag up, close the drawstring. It's a warm afternoon, so let's keep some space like that. There we go, and that air can get around it. Very good. Now comes the best part, getting this back strap off, and it lies on each side of the backbone, which we use as our guideline for our first cut. And it's a long strip just like that, lays along there. So I'm going to cut right alongside the bone, all the way down in until I hit where the ribs come out. And then I'll come out here, make another cut back, and then we'll just follow the ribs along and we'll just fillet that back strap right off there. Okay? In this case, because we're going to be dealing with ribs and the potential of puncturing, we'll use a sharp-bladed knife. Yeah. On these vertebrae in the back, past this last rib, there are some short transverse processes that stick out laterally from the center line. And you want to try to hit the very tip of those with this cut. If you're too low, you cut into the abdominal cavity. So if you're not quite sure and you can't feel them, cut a little bit high. And this stuff here is basically hamburger meat. And we should have one of those bags set aside strictly for hamburger. I'll grab one of those bags. Now we've got to keep in mind which one's the hamburger because we don't want to put the good stuff in with the hamburger. Okay. You can see that bundle. It sits right there. See that big bundle? So we can cut right along there.
There's that back strap?
Yeah, that's the back strap right there. Okay, we're going to cut this front end of this away from some of the neck and shoulder meat. And because we're cutting and the ribs run this way and the knife is running parallel, we've got to be very careful that we don't cut through. So we want to be real cautious. And again, remember, if you can't see, don't cut. Now we're going to do some fillet work. So again, we'll get this flexible knife and cut in here and see, you can feel, put your finger right in there. Feel that rib right there? What we're going to want to do is, if that's the rib, we want to just take the knife right down the rib. So we'll just do it just like that all the way along. A lot of little knobby joints in here, but I'm going to try to get all the meat you can off. Okay, you want to hold that. Might want to stand up because it's going to be pretty long, and we're going to lift it out of there. Okay, that's got her. Let me get a bag here. All right, this is a separate bag. We want to remember that this is a tenderloins backstrap go in that bag. Other bag's hamburger bag. All right. Well, let's get this neck meat off. What we want to do is continue this cut we did on the backstrap, staying against the bone as much as we can, right up to the back of the head. Make that cut, and then we can just fillet it right off. And up in the neck here, there's a lot of small processes sticking out on the vertebra, and so it's going to be a little tricky cutting, but I think we can manage to get it through there. Okay, we're right at the back of the head again. And again, the point here is we've killed this animal, and we want to take every effort to get as much meat off of it as we can, which may mean that we have to come back through and do some trimming, and that's all right. Okay, where's that burger bag? Put that handful in the hamburger bag. Part of the regulations require salvage of meat, and it includes all this meat on the ribs. Again, the ribs are laying like this, and we'll just take the knife and we'll just like skinning it. We're just the next layer down. We're back here at the back end of the rib cage. Let me show you a line here. This line that comes right down along here like that, that's the end of the ribs in the rib cage. Separates the intestinal cavity from the thoracic cavity, the lungs and the heart and so on. So we don't want to cut on that side of the line or we'll pop this cavity open. So we want to stay on this side of that line as we're cutting this meat off of here. Alrighty? And again, seems like a lot of work for the amount of meat you get, but again, realize that we killed it to eat it, so that's an investment we'll make. See all this dark? Yeah. As a result of the trauma when it was hit, bleeding, so on. And when we get this off of here, it probably makes sense to cut that out of there because blood spoils so quickly that it would sour a lot of other meat. So once we get this off of here, we can trim it up a little bit. Hamburger bag. Excellent. Okay, last little piece we need to get is this little bit of brisket off of here. You can see the line of it. And again, remember, back here is we got to be real careful along this, and you can see it kind of lifts away there, and it gives you a little seam to cut on. See how that comes away like that? And you want to have the knife real flat here so you don't poke in there. Now we're starting to pick up the ribs on the other side, so let me come around the corner here. See this spot up in here? Okay, I want to get this off. Now one of the things that I'm into here is a little bit of the meat on the other side, but that's okay. Just save us having to mess with it on the other side. Okay, here comes another piece. Let me give you a handhold here. Pull up. Attaboy. Roll it right over.
Now you can roll the carcass over onto the tarp, or pull the hide back over the skin side to protect the ribs and back strap from hair and dirt.
3.
Grab the remaining legs and pull or push over. If you've taken a bull moose, rolling the carcass over to remove the rest of the meat can be simplified by removing the antlers. To remove the antlers, use your saw and make these 2 cuts. Remember, if you're hunting in an area with antler restrictions, you will need to bring the antlers out. Skinning and dismantling the rest of the carcass is done exactly the same way we did the other side. The benefit of this approach is that the bulk of the meat is safely cleaned and cooled before gutting. After all the external meat is removed, open the abdominal cavity by cutting behind the last rib, up to the spine, and around the pelvis to open the cavity. At this point, all the digestive organs can be easily removed to facilitate the removal of the tenderloins. If the animal has been shot in the abdominal cavity, there may be digested food and digestive juices. In this case, the tenderloins may be ruined.
Okay, Jason, there's the tenderloins right there, hanging in the inside.
Fillet the tenderloins from the inside of the backbone.
Okay, make sure that doesn't get mixed with the hamburger.
At this point, the digestive organs can be removed. Now we can get at the remaining tenderloin, located on the other side of the spine.
Tenderloin.
Now separate the
Last
liver
one.
from the stomach and the intestines.
Well, here's the liver, but it looks like it got hit pretty hard. Pretty well torn up. Let's see if we can take it off of there, see if we can salvage any parts of it.
Be careful to avoid cutting into the bile sac, which is attached to the liver. Many people also salvage the kidneys.
Yeah, we get a little bit out of it. It's pretty well shot, but we'll...
The chest cavity can now be opened to remove the heart. To open the chest cavity, first cut through the diaphragm. This is the muscular membrane that separates the chest cavity from the abdominal cavity. Now reach forward into the chest cavity to remove the heart. Although you're not required to salvage the heart, it is an excellent piece of meat. The last step should be stripping the meat from between the ribs. If the ribs are to be saved with the meat on, remove them with a saw. That's it. There's nothing left but the hide, backbone, pelvis, and a pile of internal organs. Mark the kill site with surveyor's tape so that you or another hunter, backpacker, or fisherman are alerted.
Oh, there's the flags, Jason, we put out around the kill. Let's stop here and check for bears. Okay, there are the flags.
If you must return to the kill site or meat cache, exercise extreme caution and make noise to announce your presence. The gut pile is a prime attraction for bears, in part because of the strong odor it emits. If you can't immediately remove all of your bags of meat, at least try to move them several hundred yards away to an open area with good visibility all around.
6 more trips, we got her.
Remember, too, it is illegal to shoot a bear simply because it's eating your game meat. If a bear is there, back away while keeping a close eye on it.
And they're real hard to...
Now you have 8 to 10 bags of meat safely stored away from the kill site. Few hunters will be able to pack that much out on their backs in 6 trips. 8 or 9 trips are more common, especially if you're taking antlers and a cape. Distance and terrain may mean the quarters, especially the hind quarters, are more than you want to carry in single loads. Where legal, boning may be your preferred option, but remember that a large amount of boned meat in a single bag won't cool and dry well, so caring for boned meat requires extra effort and attention. Whether you choose the method we've demonstrated or some variation, The work hasn't ended when the meat is bagged and packed out. You must continue to care for the meat right up until the time you or someone else begins cutting and wrapping the meat. From this point on, you must use every means possible to keep the meat cool, clean, and dry. However, if air temperatures are above 45 degrees and cool, fresh water is available, soak the meat for about half an hour to cool it down. After removing the meat from the water, use your hands to squeegee as much water off as possible. It's important to keep bagged meat hanging in a dry, breezy, cool area in the shade. You want to hang your meat bags to promote air circulation. The ideal solution is to construct a meat pole. However, in Alaska, there are often no trees big enough to support one. You must then use available resources to build a platform or frame of brush or rock, or even a tarp in a snowbank. Anything to get the meat off the ground. If possible, the pole should be built so the bottom of the bags are 12 feet off the ground. This will keep them out of the reach of bears. So long as the meat is off the ground, the objectives of air circulation and cooling are accomplished. It's this process that permits a crust to form on the meat to protect it from insects and retard bacteria growth. The large sections of meat can be hung first. These pieces can now be treated with the citric acid you brought along. The powder is mixed with water in a spray bottle for easy application. The citric acid will lower the pH value of the meat, which reduces bacterial growth, including E. coli. And it helps the meat to develop a glazed surface that will deter flies from laying eggs. The game bags can now be placed back over the meat. Remove the smaller pieces of meat and place them on a clean surface. Spray them thoroughly with the citric acid solution. The meat is then placed back in their bags and hung with the rest of the pieces. Never use plastic bags to store meat. Plastic retains heat and moisture and results in rapid spoilage. Meat that has been boned should be repositioned daily within the bag to allow all surfaces to get adequate air circulation. The meat pole must be covered to protect the meat from both direct sunlight and rain. The tarp should be loosely anchored at all corners to permit as much air circulation as possible. Your meat pole should be a minimum of 100 yards from your campsite. It should be placed downwind from the camp, with a clear line of sight. That way there will be no surprises of the furry kind when you approach the pole. If you're transporting meat by boat, canoe, or raft, it will be more difficult to keep the meat cool and dry. It is very important to build some sort of framework in the bottom of the vessel to store the meat. Virtually every boat has some bilge water sloshing around the hull. At best, it will get the meat wet and sour it. At worst, if there's gasoline or oil in the bilge water, you will ruin the meat. If your trip will take more than one day, it is essential that you unload all of the meat every night and either hang it up or put it on some sort of framework. Leaving meat piled in a vessel is a sure recipe for spoilage and waste. Transporting meat by aircraft is fairly straightforward, as flight times tend to be relatively brief. But don't make the mistake of stacking bags of meat on a runway or dock at either end of the trip. Use the same meat care precautions as you did in camp. And remember, weather may prevent transport of all of the meat the same day. The same principles apply to transporting with an all-terrain vehicle. Remember, a good meat bag breathes. If you transport the game bags uncovered over a dusty trail, you're going to have filthy pieces of meat when you reach your destination. If your trip takes more than one day, unpack the meat every night just as you would with a boat. Once home, hunters either deliver their meat to a commercial butcher or package it themselves. If you deliver to a butcher, your meat care concerns are pretty much ended. If you choose to process the meat yourself, you may prefer to age the meat first by hanging it in a cool, dry, shaded place. Meat on the bone can be hung several days or even a week, depending on temperatures. Hanging wild game meat for more than 5 days, even under ideal conditions, 38 to 40 degrees, does not result in better meat. It is essential to keep hanging meat from freezing. Freezing stops the process that tenderizes the meat. Circulating air will also help to keep meat from freezing. Boned meat should be processed immediately. We've discussed several techniques for handling big game animals. You may have seen or practiced other methods or variations of these. Producing tasty table fare is mostly common sense and a lot of hard work. Once you've downed an animal, your primary focus must turn to caring for the meat. You won't go wrong if you remember the 3 cardinal rules. Keep it clean, keep it cool, and keep it dry. Good luck and good hunting.